Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to congregation Beit Tikva. We are the house of hope. So we begin this Shabbat evening with we're reading from Torah, the last parasha, the last portion of the book of Genesis. And we're going to begin our prayers for this Shabbat evening with Yiddi Nefesh, my heart's delight. Alma and Wendy will lead us in a flute duet. A meditation before we come to the blessing over the Shabbat candles. I'm on page 43 in our Siddur. We seekers of God, how do we find you? In good deeds and the study of Torah. And your search for us. You find us in the bending of the knee, in the rigor of study, in the honesty of commerce, through a good heart, through decency, in respect, true fellowship, companionship, and love, through truth and peace, in the no that is really no, and the yes that is really yes. Baruch atah Adonai hamelamed Torah lamo Yisrael. Blessed are you, O God, who teaches us Torah to your people, the house of Israel. So let's go to page 121 for a short reading before we sanctify the Shabbat. We begin with a blessing over the candles. Middle of 121. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Let's read together on page 127. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty, and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. So let's turn forward in our prayers. We come to the we come to the Psalms, which lead us into Kabbalat Shabbat. We always begin on Friday evening with Psalm 95, called Lechu Neranana. Come, let us sing. Top of page 130. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Come, let us enter into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the lands which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. Let's read from Psalm 97, top of page 133. Adonai is sovereign, let the earth exult, the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God. Righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love Adonai, hate evil. God guards the lives of God's loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in Adonai and acclaim God's holy name. So we turn a few pages and we come to one of our favorite melodies, Lecha Dodi, welcoming in the Sabbath bride. We're on 138 as we sing together with Alma and Wendy, verses 1 and 2, and then if you're able, stand up and we'll sing verse 9. Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela shamor v'zachor v'diburecha Ishmi'anu elam yuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shemut pered l'tila lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 9. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Let's turn forward to the Chatzi Kaddish, the half Kaddish, which you'll find on 144 as we enter into the central portion of the prayers for this Friday evening service. On 144. Yitkada v'yitkada shemerava, v'yamad yibrachute v'yamlich machute, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayedechol Beit Yisrael. Agala, agala, u'bizman kariv, v'imru, amen. Yeheshmer Abba Mevorach, Le'olam Me'omer Maya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, Yitbar, Yitramam, Yitnaseh, Yitada, Yitaleh, Yitalah, Shemer Kudusha, Rechu, Lela min kol berchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, nechemata, damiran b'yama, b'imru, amen. Continuing with the Baruch Hu on page 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai Amorach, Baruch Adonai Amorach, Leolam Vaed. Let's read together the first blessing before the Shema. We're on 148. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night, distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Ma'ariv Aravim. The second blessing, Ahavat Olam, on page 150. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Together we lift our voices for the Shema on 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Let's all be seated. Be comfortable. We continue with the words from Deuteronomy, one of our most favorite paragraphs from Deuteronomy chapter 6. Let's read together on 154. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha v'betecha v'lechtecha v'derech v'shachbecha v'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha v'visharecha Laman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liyot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home, when you are away, when you lie down, and when you go. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them serve as a symbol. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. So we turn a few pages forward to the traditional words of Mi Chamocha from Exodus chapter 15. And we'll sing with Alma and Wendy's accompaniment. Who is like you, O God, among all others who are worshipped? Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi Chamocha nehda b'kodesh, Nora tehilot oseh feleh, Nora tehilot oseh feleh, Malchutecha ra'u banecha, okei ayam, livnei Moshe Miriam, Zeli anu v'yamru, Adonai imloch, Adonai imloch, leolam vaed. We turn now to the beautiful blessing, the bracha, called Hashkivenu, which ends with the words, may God spread peace over us and watch over Jerusalem and all your people. The words are on 160. Alma and Wendy are going to do a flute duet. So we continue with more beautiful music. The words are Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. The people of Israel shall keep and observe the Sabbath. We're on page 162 and we're singing together. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et Shabbat Lasod et ha-Shabbat L'dorotam v'olam Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et Shabbat Lasod Adonai et ha-shamayim et haaretz vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam So we turn to the 7 blessings of the Shabbat evening service, the Tefillah. Let's all look on page 164 if you have a Siddur in front of you. We're singing from Psalm 51, Adonai Sifatai Tiftach. If you're comfortable, please stand and we'll recite the first 2 blessings together, singing together on 166, 168, and then continue reading. Adonai Sifatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Ilatecha Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu V'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El HaGadol HaGibor V'Hadorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, L'man Shemo Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ezrat Sarah. Page 168. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מכלכל חיים וחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. צומק נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר. מי כמוך על גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך מימין ומחיה ומצמיע ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. Baruch atah Adonai, together in the middle of 170. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. So let's all be seated, be comfortable. We continue with the fourth blessing for the sanctification of this Sabbath day. On 173, top of the page. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Reading together on page 175. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, shodcha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. And we continue with a blessing of thanksgiving, the Modim. Let's read from a metaphorical rendition, page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, lecha na'eh lehodot. So we conclude the tefillah, the 7 blessings for Shabbat evening with Shalom Rav. We ask for peace upon our fellow human beings, our people Israel, everyone, all we know and love. Page 178. Let's think of our loved ones on this Sabbath, the end of Genesis, the end of the year 2020, and offer prayers for everyone in need of strengthening, of healing, of emotional uplifting, spiritual revival, psychological strengthening. So we're on 371, the prayer, as you all know very well, Misha Berach. Before we sing together with Lela and Wendy and Alma, we'll think of some of our own friends from the congregation, and you'll think of your loved ones and friends as well. Thinking of Bonnie Cantor, Arlene Vinnick, Doreen Herdig, Lynn Kelly, and Flo Vinnick as well. And also our Cantors, Father Eliodoro Herrera, Father of Cantor Ephraim and Elisheba. And do we have some other folks we're thinking of as well today? Pat Shapiro, long friend of congregation Beit Tikva. And also Nancy, this spouse of Kay Fowler, of blessed memory. So let's sing together. We're in the middle of 371. Misha Berach. So looking back over this secular year, we would have to paraphrase Charles Dickens, who once wrote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." Many people told me it was the worst of times. But let me compare this supposed disaster of the past 10 months to perhaps the worst of times. Think of the 20th century, not so far away from all of us. What happened in the 20th century? More people died in that century than in all other centuries in the previous 2,000 years. Racial hatred seemed to rise to unprecedented heights. Despots ruled the world. Mao and Stalin, Hitler, Pol Pot, and many others destroyed tens of millions of lives in many, many countries. Our environment began to crumble in the latter part of the 20th century. Epidemics flourished as well, and racial hatred reached in times an unprecedented pinnacle to the disgrace of all of us. Our environment, as I said, began to weaken, and our democracy, which seemed to be the bulwark for all of Western civilization, if not for Eastern civilization as well, our democracy started to fray under the, under the pressures of tribalism and other political movements. But this nation does endure. This nation has risen up and overcome all kinds of disasters in the past. And we cannot let liberty take a backward seat to our belief in the future that is all that is good for American democracy. That's the general picture, so don't get too depressed. I've got something a little more positive to offer on this Shabbat. We are no strangers, as you know. We Jews are no strangers to disappointments. While the last century may have seemed to be the nadir of our existence, in some ways it was a great moment of inspiration and hope. Countless Jewish souls from Eastern Europe and from the Middle East emigrated to the new land of Israel. And that great state of Israel saw unprecedented growth, development, scientific exploration, and Israel, as you know, has become not only the Silicon Valley of the Middle East, it has become the brains of the Middle East and all that portion of the world. So we shall not despair. What I'm trying to say is, as we look at the end of this year and think of what may come about in 2021, we cannot despair. In fact, one of the commandments is never to despair. Elie Wiesel gave a marvelous lecture years and years ago and spoke about the desire for hope, the importance of tikva in Jewish life and Jewish society. Tikva is more than hope, it's resilience. It's a sense of committing ourselves to a sacred purpose. Despite any devastation or disappointment, we Jews have renewed ourselves. We have rededicated ourselves to God's justice and God's moral purpose. And that means repairing the world. That means l'taken et olam, to make things better in our lives. It is said that a Jew who doesn't believe in miracles is not a realist, but a Jew who only believes in miracles may be deceiving herself. We can't count on miracles to fix the situation that we enter into in 2021. But we can count on our learning, our experience of the past 3,000 years to help us understand what we can look forward to. Let me give you a quick story about Jacob, the patriarch, who in this Torah portion is in his final years. Remember, he's over 130 years old. He's now on his deathbed. He's surrounded by his sons, most notably Joseph and Joseph's sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And maybe Jacob would have been despairing as well after his long life. He even says to the Pharaoh, I've had a lot of tsuris in my life. I've been through some very difficult times. And it could have been that Joseph would have shrugged his shoulders and looked at Joseph and said, enough's enough. You do what you have to do. You're the prime minister of Egypt. Let me be. Let me go unto my God. Let me come back to my forefathers, Abraham, Isaac. But he doesn't give in to hopelessness. He doesn't say, I'm despairing. He says, I want to bless your children, Joseph. I want to bless your sons. And with that blessing, he promises them an extraordinary degree of hope. There's another part of the blessing that we find in this Torah portion, which is that Jacob draws all of his other sons, Joseph and the other 10 boys, 11 boys, and says, assemble yourselves together, come close to me. I want to tell you about the end of days. I want to explain to you that which will befall all of you at the end of days. It's an extremely equivocal, complex sentence in the Hebrew. The rabbi said, well, what are the end of days? What is he talking about? Did he have a vision of what would happen later in history? Did he have some notion of a messianic redemption, which doesn't really, it's not even mentioned in the 5 books of Torah. What was he talking about, the end of days? Does it just mean this is what's going to happen to you? all my sons and my daughter as you become 70, 80, 90 years old. What's interesting is the rabbis say, they don't explain what the end of days is. They say, just as he's about to start talking and explain what he means, his mind went blank. The Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of God, the feminine presence of God, literally evaporated from his brain, from his consciousness. And he couldn't say anything. He said nothing to them about the end of days. Does that mean he had a stroke? Does that mean he just had a moment of forgetfulness? Or was God's power, so to speak, hashgacha, so overwhelming that the Almighty prevented him from explaining the future to his family? We don't know. We could argue, we could talk about it for an hour or two. What I think is important is to think about, for us personally, what are we looking towards as we look at our end of days? Not that I'm talking about the end of our physical life, but I'm talking about what are we looking for in our future years in this country, in our society, in Santa Fe, in your family history? What are we looking for? I remember seeing a clip on the news a few days ago where they were showing Congressman John Lewis, who passed away, as you know, this year. He gave this incredible sermon and said, keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. His notion of what the prize is was certainly his own vision of democracy and fairness and racial justice in America. But I think our vision of the prize, I want to give you a Jewish notion or a Jewish interpretation of the prize and give you this as a sense of hope for the new year. The prize in Talmudic lingo goes like this. It's actually an Aramaic phrase. It goes, Yisrael deoraita dekudsha brichu chadchu. It's not easy to, it's actually a mantra. It rhymes in Aramaic. Yisrael deoraita dekudsha brichu chadchu, which means, and here's the prize according to the rabbis of old. The people of Israel, meaning all of our community, our congregation, the Torah, everything that we've learned and been blessed with from the Almighty, and the understanding that God is truly above us and watching over us. All of that is one. All of that is a unity. It is the greatest unity that we can fathom and delve into in our lives. That to me is the prize. If you will it, it's no story. If you will it and you go for it, it is not simply an intellectual aspiration. It is the real thing. Yisrael Doraita, Dekudsha Brichu, it's all one. That our community, our love of learning, our love of being part of this great world and understanding that there's something beyond us as well, that is the ultimate unity that we have to strive for. That's the hope that gives us strength for the year ahead. May it be that way for all of us. And may all of us stay healthy. Shabbat Shalom. So again, happy 2021 for everyone. I forgot to say that at the end of the book of Genesis, when we would lift up the Torah after a Torah reading, we always say, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and be strengthened by it. May our love of Torah and our love of learning give us strength for the new year. We look forward to seeing you and having you participate with us on the computer for Shabbat morning study and all the good things we do. Please check your emails. Wendy and Alma send us weekly emails and tell us everything that's happening in our community. And we're delighted to have you participate. Let's go now to our closing prayers. And the first one, of course, is the Aleinu on page 586. If you're comfortable, please stand and we'll sing together. The words are on the lower portion of the page. At this time in our service, we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, and those as well who died at this season in years gone by. Those whom we have drawn into our hearts as our very own. Zichronam livracha, may their memory always be a blessing to all of us. We remember on this Shabbat, first of all, during the period of Shloshim, our dear friend Kay Fowler, director of our Beit Tikva choir and music program for more than 2 decades. We also recall during this their yahrzeit memorial, beloved members and family members of our congregation, Samuel A. Blyman, father of Marcia Berman, Martha Melanie Kahn, the grandmother of Nancy Hardington and Kathy Kahn Mahan, Eric Klein, dear friend of our congregation, Leonard Koval, husband of Ruthie Koval, Alan Posich, friend of Gail Rappaport, and Ralph Thaler, past leader of this congregation and father of Nancy and Audrey. May their memories always be a blessing to us. Please turn to 598. We'll say the Kaddish together on 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah b'yamad ivra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael b'agala v'ankari v'imru Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei almayah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Dekucha B'richu Lela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata Tushbechata V'Nechamata Damiran B'Alma V'Imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'Chayim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Mromav U'Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. May the Holy One who creates harmony on high bless us and keep us, bring us peace. Shalom B'Mromav, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, Imru, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Kol Yisrael. The words for the Kiddush, the sanctification dedication of this beautiful day are on page 123. 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei v'riach ha'afem. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'rasa b'anu, v'shabbat kadsho v'hava u'ratzon impilanu, zikaron le'maaseh b'reshit, kilu yom tehilah v'mikra kodesh, zecher l'siyat Mitzrayim, ki baruch acharta yotanu kidashta mikol amim, v'shabbat koshecha v'yava u'ratzon imnatanu, baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Good Sabbath to everybody.